So, Mrs. Mansell, yeah, your audience is here, you're in Utrecht. Have you been here before in the city?
Not to Utrecht, no. No, never.
And how do you enjoy it?
It's beautiful. It's so lovely as we were driving in, and seeing the little bookstores as well out here for Manuscripta is fantastic.
Yeah. And the weather is lovely.
Gorgeous. Yeah, I arranged the weather.
Yeah, thank you so much, and you can do that. We're going to take we have 30 minutes together to discuss your work, discuss your life, and also there are some questions from the audience. They're hard, because I already asked you, who are the hardcore Jill Mansell fans here? So as soon as I said, are there any burning questions? Yes, was one lady right away said, there she is, that she wants to ask a question. But let's go back to people. Yeah, of course, a lot of people know your biography, but maybe not everybody has heard it in more greater detail in these 30 minutes. If we go back to your childhood, do you come from a family where reading, writing, fantasy was an important aspect of your upbringing?
Not really. I always like reading, and nobody else in the family writes. But I did actually start off when I was about 8. I was a bridesmaid, and I wrote the story of me being a bridesmaid afterwards, and the bride has still got it. All these years later. It was 50 years ago. Oh God, I can't believe that. Nearly 50 years ago. And so she said, you even then, you were wanting to write about nice things, nice people, lovely things going on. And then I used to write when I was sort of a teenager, just nice, happy stories.
And did you write a diary? Were you one of the children, girls who write and wrote a diary?
I did for a little bit, but then I got embarrassed with it and I threw it away. I wish I'd kept it. If you keep a diary, never throw it away, because you can always look back and laugh at it afterwards, can't you?
But you felt embarrassed about your own. But were you already critical of your own style?
No, it was because I was saying, I really like that boy in my class. It was things like that. Oh no, what if anybody ever saw this?
So you threw it away. And what if you love to read? Because from a young age you loved reading.
Yes.
What were some of the authors now that if you look back at nearly 50 years, that might have influenced you or inspired you?
Oh gosh, well I don't know if you know them, but Laura Ingalls Wilder, who did The Little House on the Prairie. Yeah. I used to love those. I used to read those over and over and over again. I think they were my favourites. So.
And any other, when you were growing up, literary authors or mystery novels or other?
I think, lots of the sort of the old-fashioned ones, like Heidi, I used to love. What Katie did, which is an American one, isn't it? And what Katie did next. Little Women. I loved Little Women.
Yeah. So girls or young women, girls were always a theme?
I think so, yes, they were, yeah.
And how, if we look at your childhood, some writers write what they know, or kind of like, try to get away from their backgrounds or childhood. How was your youth and childhood?
Mine was very happy. It was lovely. Nothing horrible happened apart from me fighting with my little brother. And we fought with our little brothers, haven't we? But no, nothing traumatic, nothing dreadful. So I had a lovely childhood growing up, yeah.
So, as in writing happy things, that sort of stems from writing what you know?
I think so, because when I was reading books or watching television programmes, I mean, Titanic, the film Titanic, if I could have made that my perfect film, the boat would never have hit the iceberg. Because I love all the stuff beforehand, and then I hate it. Even now, watching the film, I'll usually watch the first half and not watch the second half.
So that was something you always enjoyed. And so when you made the transition to writing professionally, did you have a clear idea and path of, I'm going to write happy stories, lovely stories? Was that something you always knew? If I make that step, that's what I'll write about?
I think I just didn't decide to do it. It was just the kind of thing I wanted to write. And they always say, write the kind of books that you'd like to read, and they are the kind of books that I'd like to read. And the other writers that I enjoy reading do similar kind of things, like Sophie Kinsella. I love her books as well.
And she also writes from her own...
Yes, and that's quite sort of fun and cheery, and nothing dreadful happens.
Yeah. When you decided to become a writer, you took a course and you're still friends with some of the people in your course.
Yeah.
Was that, because you had a career, you worked in a hospital, brain, you told me...
putting electrodes on the head and measuring the brain waves. It's called electroencephalography, which is a very long word. And it was lovely because I worked in intensive care units and operating theatres and prisons. I worked on little babies, old people, anybody at all. So every day was different, and I just really enjoyed it.
Very interesting, career, And so, but what was that? There was something. Was it always simmering that there is a story I need to tell or I want to write, or was it sort of like, oh, why not do a course? How? Please take us.
Well, one day I was having my lunch in the hospital, and I found a magazine out in the waiting room, and in the magazine was a story about how women had transformed their lives by becoming best-selling authors. So I thought, oh, I'll do that. and I really did, and I've kept the magazine, and I still have it all these years later. And I was giving a talk about it a while back now, and afterwards another writer came up to me and he said he was inspired by the same article in that same magazine to become a writer, and then he became a professional writer as well.
And how did you know, how come you were so open and positive about it? Oh, I'll do that.
Because I didn't really think it would happen. That's like saying, oh yes, I'd like to write a song that will be #1 around the world. And make me millions of pounds. You can say it, but it's not really likely to happen. So I did think it. I thought, oh, I can write words. I don't know if I can write a book. And so I joined the evening class and made friends with other people who were trying to do the same thing. And luckily it worked out.
And how, when you started doing the course, were you one of the people who realized quickly, oh yeah, I can do this, I like this? Was it a struggle? How was it to do the course? You have a dream and it's almost like maybe a joke, but then the work has to start.
Yeah.
How was that?
I think writing initially was easier because I didn't have anybody to tell me then that it was no good, because I don't get anybody else to read it. When I'm writing my books, nobody sees it until the end, except my daughter now, who types my work. So I just started off, and I really enjoyed writing the first one. It's got more difficult since then.
So the first one came easily during the course. You finished a novel.
Yes.
And then, because then the journey started to get it published.
Yeah. Well, this is it took a bit longer than that. I started off writing little short articles in magazines, selling them to magazines. But when I started writing the book, the first book I ever wrote, I gave it to my then husband, Mr. Mansell, worked with somebody who said, oh, I'll type it for her, because a lot of you know I write my books by hand. So I'd written this first book by hand.
Was that Fast Friends? Or
No, this was a one before that. And so I gave her the copy. She said, I'd love to type it for you. And so I gave it to her. And then I kept saying to my husband, how's she getting on with the typing? And he'd say, oh, she says she's doing fine. And we kept on asking, and then she left the place where she was working with my husband, and I've never seen it since. That was my first book, just vanished.
Disappeared.
And I never saw it again, So I don't know where it is.
And maybe she published it somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah.
It might have been published. I tell myself that it was probably really bad, because that was my first attempt.
But
so it's a practice one.
But then you decided, okay, I'll do it again.
Yes, but I wrote a completely different book, and I was writing like Jilly Cooper style, Jackie Collins, but no sex. But Judith Krantz, was she well known?
Judith Krantz, right?
Maybe not, no.
Scruples and like these.
Yes, it's the kind of books that I would like to read, and so that's
glamour books, because your books, what I love about your books, it could be almost any of us. It's really lovely characters, very diverse. Girls next door, sort of, women next door.
Exactly.
And that first period was more the glamour, women?
A little bit more, yes.
And without the sex?
But I wrote the book, and I sent the whole book off to an agent, and the first agent said, this book is not publishable, it's too confusing and too much happens in it. So I sent it off to the second agent, and they said, this book is not publishable, it's too boring and not enough happens in it. And so it was costing me a lot of money. I was very poor in those days, and I couldn't afford the stamps to send off this great big manuscript. There's no email then. So I thought I'll just send it off to one last agent. And luckily she phoned me up and she said, I love this book, I know that I can sell it, and basically your life is going to change now. And if I hadn't sent it off to her, I might have just put it in a drawer and it never happened.
And did you, because how did you deal with those first two big rejections?
I cried. I did.
Yeah. And what helped, what kept you going? Because yeah, you like you said, you didn't have...
Well, I just thought I'd written this whole thing. It had taken me ages, so I just thought one more time, because you have to send off the big thing and you have to send off the postage for them to return it to you when they say they don't want it.
Yeah.
But I'm still with that same agent now, and we all these years later, all these books later, so it's worked out really well.
It's worked out amazingly, and next year your 25th book is coming out in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
In June, ladies and gentlemen. So that's finished already. But if we go back to your early career and starting, you became. It happened really fast when this agent, discovered you and said your life's going to change. She was right.
Well, no, not really. Well, it did to begin with, because she got me a couple of publishers that were interested, and they had a little fight over me, and then we went with one publisher, which was a really lovely publisher. But then the first book came out and did quite well, but then the sales went down and down after that for the first 6 books. And then I didn't have a publisher just for a little while, and then my English publisher now, Headline, they scooped me up out of the gutter and took me on, and then after they started to publish me, then the sales went really up.
What happened? Why?
Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. They didn't have a lot of money for advertising. I think they had a really nice cover. I think that makes a difference, having nice covers. I mean, my English covers are sort of like this now. They're different than the Dutch ones, yeah. But all the countries have their own covers.
Do you have every book in 25 covers at home?
Most of them, not all, no. Sometimes we have to get rid of some because there just isn't room in the house.
So, let's talk about your writing and your style. You developed a personal, a really light-hearted, but also genuinely, I think, loving style about your characters. Even if it's somebody who's maybe completely different from me, I recognize parts in it and I get to know them. Is that your nature? Is that how you stand in life? How you always look at people?
Well, I think it must be. Because I don't try and write like that. That's the only way I can write. And when I try and write serious stuff, then the funny bits come in. And because my daughter types her books now, but to begin with, when she was sort of a teenager at school, a lot of her friends read my books, and she refused to, because if she ever read one page, she said, oh, it's horrible, it sounds like you, so it makes me feel funny. And sometimes the characters would say things that I say, and sometimes the characters would say things that she says. And so for ages, she just couldn't bear. It made her feel squirmy.
It was too, yeah, so it's really your voice.
Yes.
In all of the characters. And if you look at the themes, was it also a conscious decision to write about love, about relationship? Was it something you were always interested in? It maybe had to do with, the first marriage, breaking up, or was that, how did that develop? From the glamour to the...
I think it's again what you enjoy reading. Write the same books as you enjoy reading, and I love so many sort of romantic novels and romantic comedy novels that it seemed to be the way to go. And I don't think I know how to do a sort of a murder mystery or a thriller. I don't know how people work that out and get the endings right and put all the clues in. So at least when I write about life, and so we all know what that's like in all its different forms, and the things that happen with marriage breakups and I don't know, various problems that we overcome.
Yeah, and mostly of the art with a lot of humor.
Yeah.
That's a very important part of you, I guess. Were you always famous for your jokes, like in person with your friends and growing up and working? Was it something you always employed?
Yeah, I think so. It was quite strange. My father died in a plane crash when I was a little baby, and last year I met his cousin, who I'd never met before, and my family are quite sort of serious, and the rest of my family that I have now, but this cousin was like everybody said that my dad was. They said, oh, he'd turn up at a party and everyone would say, hooray, he's here, and he loved parties and he was fun and he was really funny. And then I met this cousin of his, and she's like 70 now, but she was fun and funny, and it was like we were talking to ourselves, to each other. It was really spooky, but absolutely lovely.
But how amazing to meet her.
Yes.
Of course, I don't know if you're all curious, but how come you didn't know her before?
She, well, I never knew anything from, my mum didn't like to talk, my mum remarried after she was widowed, and she never really liked to talk about my real dad.
Yeah.
So I've got a dad now who's my stepfather, but I call him my dad. But she lost touch with that side of the family, and then some unknown, very distant relative died without making a will. I don't know if you have this here, but then the companies will find the long-lost relatives so that they can get the money.
I think that happens here too, right?
Otherwise, the money from whoever's died just goes to the government. So that's what happened. I was contacted by this company and they said, some man from the past has died and he had a house and the house is going to be sold and the money's divided between all the relatives. So they do lots of really difficult investigations, and they found this relative and they gave me a family tree of the whole family, and then they said, this relative here, she would like to contact you. And now that it's email, it happens just like that. So they sent me the message. I saw it and I went, oh, fantastic. So I emailed them and I said, yes, I'd love to contact her. Give me her email address. And so they gave me the email address. So 2 minutes later, I wrote to her. And she, for some reason, had thought that I'd been taken away as a baby to live in Australia.
She didn't know you were Jill Mansell, the famous
No,
author.
but she used to read my books. So we met up, and it was just so lovely to meet her. It was really nice, and now we're all in touch all the time.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
As a writer, is because you just told us, you know, yeah, my father, plane crash, I was just a little baby, mother married. Doesn't that also inspire you, like, I have to write something about that?
I don't
fiction maybe? Or
I don't know, I've never written about a plane crash, possibly for that reason. But I've got my dad, who's been my dad for a long, long time, and so I don't want him to be sort of upset and to think that I'm sort of not so interested in him.
No, but as a writer?
As a writer, well...
Of course, you're a lovely human being and so sweet for your family, but you, the writer, does that...
I'll just change it around. I mean, I love I've written lots of times, obviously, as some of you know, that of long-lost relatives being reunited, and I love writing. That's my favourite topic. And, yeah, possibly because of that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So tell us about your last book. It's for sale here. You will be signing afterwards in the foyer. Is Jill Mansell nog for a personal signing session, and also later on at the stand of your Dutch publisher Luiting Seithof. Het is bij buiten, kraam 27. 2:15 tot 3 uur. Er zijn 2 mogelijkheden. But yes, rozengeur en zonneschijn, or the British title, The Unpredictable Consequences of Love.
And that's roses and sunshine, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's the Dutch translation. Tell us about your latest book.
Well, I really enjoyed writing it. It's set by the sea in Cornwall, and it's about a female photographer, which was just such a brilliant idea for a career in a book, because photographers go everywhere and do everything, and they see what goes on when they go to like weddings and family events, and and you can learn a lot when you're a photographer, just going and visiting different...
And is that something that you also researched while you were writing? Did you kind of like, is it all your imagination, just imagine how it is? Or do you then walk around for a week feeling like a photographer and taking pictures? Is that how you work?
Not really, I don't do that much research. I did a bit of research about how photographers, I mean I have photo shoots done at home, and when the people come along I say, what do you call those big white boards that you put up? And they tell me the names of them. So I was sort of taking notes. I looked up quite a lot online as well, because Google is a fantastic thing.
I was just wondering, how did you write before Google?
I don't know. Just used to,
because you always have women with careers and work.
I know.
Did you go to the library to really find out, okay, how...
I think I must have done, yes. But also Google has made life a lot more difficult, because if now you're looking for, say, somebody that you knew 30 years ago and lost touch with, I mean, I used to write that, and that used to be the interesting bit of the book.
Yeah.
But now you just put their name into Google, and there they are 2 seconds later. And so I think, what if somebody wants to find her real father? And that's one that I'm writing at the moment. And so I've got to find reasons why Google can't help.
Yeah.
And like, everybody's got mobile phones now, so if you're supposed to be meeting somebody at the airport, in the olden days it was, why haven't they turned up at the airport? Where can they be? Yeah. Now you just phone them.
Yeah. Or maybe dead battery, but okay. So
I say that all the time. Oh, no signal.
Yeah. So a photographer who's done with love.
Yes. Well, something happened in her past that it wasn't her fault, but she hurt somebody very badly, and they took it very badly, and it upset her so much. She felt very guilty about what had happened, so she decides that's it, no more love. And then she meets somebody who's really nice, who really likes her, and so he's got to work around the problems that she's giving him there, and he doesn't know the true story either, so he has to investigate
Find out who she is. Yeah.
Yes.
And although you know, your 25th book next year coming out, I have the Dutch title already. If you want to hear, it's going to be called Je bent geweldig. And the English title is 3 Amazing Things About You. So 25 books, love, people, relationships, the heart, emotions. Are your friends scared of you to even tell you something or come over for dinner because they know it? Because yeah, you can't find all of it on Google, right?
Yes, I mean, sometimes I do. They don't mind, my friends, if they say, oh, I've got a brilliant story here for you. Guess what happened to me the other day? And
they trust you, they know you'll...
I mean, I'll just use anything, and you do get ideas from anywhere, and yeah, friends will tell me, and it's lovely when they do. And things happen that... to me as well, and something happened to me this week that I'm going to use in a book.
Can you share?
Well, yes, it's just a silly little thing, and I don't know if it happens here, but I was just at home writing, and the phone rang. If anyone follows me on Twitter or Facebook, they might have seen this. But the phone rang, and a man said, hello, your daughter, Lydia Charty, has been in a serious car accident. I went like that. I said, what? And he said, and you need to phone this number to find out. And so most people would phone a number, but I've heard of this on the internet. And then I said, where is she? And he said, tell me what car she drives. And I said, she doesn't drive a car. Because she doesn't. and it was one of these scam things. The people make you phone this number, and when you phone up, they charge you hundreds of pounds a minute to be on the phone trying to get through, which is just the most awful thing. So I was really shocked for a short space of time, and then I was really angry. But I told lots of people on Facebook and Twitter, and so many people said, "Oh, I've not heard of that. Thank you for telling me, because if it happens to them, they'll know." And other people said, "Yes, it's happened to me too." And it's just such a horrible thing to do. But then other writers are writing to me and saying, "Yeah, but you could use it in a book." I say yes.
And Arthur, this is my last question to you, and then we have a few more minutes for some questions from the audience, I promised. But my last question to you is, are you also good at giving advice? Do people come to you for advice about love? Because you've written, you know it all.
Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't, but I think I'm really good at giving advice. And so in my books, I'm in charge. I'm the queen of the world in my books, so I can make the characters do what I want them to do. So it's quite strange sometimes at home. I want to tell people to do things that I want them to do, and then they won't do it.